Troy 2 is a fictional epic sequel that continues the legacy of the Trojan War, set in the turbulent aftermath of Troy's destruction. The film explores the shattered Greek alliance as the surviving warriors struggle with guilt, loss, and the consequences of their victory. Odysseus faces increasing resistance from the gods during his long journey home, while Agamemnon's return to Mycenae is marked by betrayal and political unrest. The story also shifts focus to the Trojan survivors, led by Aeneas, who flee the ruins of Troy in search of a new homeland, carrying the memory of their fallen city and the weight of destiny. Themes of vengeance, fate, and the cost of war dominate the narrative, with intense battles, emotional reckonings, and divine interventions shaping the characters' paths. Troy 2 expands the mythological world introduced in Troy 2004, blending historical epic with Greek mythology to show that, even after the war ends, its scars continue to define heroes and kingdoms alike. The line between epic spectacle and overblown bore is often as unclear as it is easily crossed. So it's no surprise that Wolfgang Petersen's Troy navigates that demarcation like a drunk driver on a twisty two-lane highway. There are times when Troy is stirring and engaging. However, at least as often, it is flat. There's really too much story to cram into a 65-minute period. Yet, paradoxically, the movie seems longer than its bloated running length. And all of the visual majesty that hundreds of millions of dollars can buy cannot obscure the perfunctory and unsatisfying development of the major characters. Troy is loosely, and I emphasize loosely, based on Homer's epic poem, the Iliad, which many educated viewers will have read once, probably in a high school literature class. David Benioff's screenplay keeps most of the places and names, but takes a lot of what could charitably call artistic license. One of the more interesting changes is to place the Olympians in the background. Troy is a story of men alone, not of men and gods. The filmmakers wanted this movie to follow in the footsteps of Braveheart and Gladiator rather than Clash of the Titans. For my money, it's the right decision. Most viewers will recognize at least part of the story, which takes place around the year 1250 BC. Homer's poem is believed to have been composed about 400 years later. Helen of Sparta, Diane Kruger, the daughter of Zeus and a mortal, is said to be the most beautiful woman alive. When Paris of Troy, Orlando Bloom accompanies his older brother, Hector Eric Bana, on a peace mission to Sparta. Paris and Helen fall for each other. The lovers flee to Troy and Sanctuary while Helen's scorned husband, Menelaus Brendan Gleeson, encourages his brother, Agamemnon Brian Cox, to rouse all of Greece to go to war with Troy. Led by the hero Achilles, Brad Pitt, the Greeks attack the walled city. With the possible exception of Hector, who is portrayed with depth and feeling by Eric Bana, star of last year's Hulk, the characters in Troy are paper-thin. The biggest disappointment is Brad Pitt's Achilles, whose minuscule personality is overwhelmed by his bronzed skin and bulging muscles. Despite having bulked up for the part, Pitt defines the term miscast. Achilles is as lifeless a central figure as one is likely to find. Orlando Bloom's Paris and Diane Kruger's Helen fall into the same pretty but personality-free zone. The sparks are left to the veterans, in particular Peter O'Toole as Troy's King Priam, who employs his limited screen time to fashion a memorable character. In the end, one wishes the film had been focused on the King of Troy rather than the Greek hero. Troy is chock full of majestic battle scenes, none of which generate a whiff of energy or suspense. Some might argue that it's hard to make a battle exciting when the end is already known. Those familiar with mythology know what happens when the Trojan horse makes its appearance. But I disagree. I had read Tolkien's books long before viewing Peter Jackson's adaptation of The Lord of the Rings, and was still riveted by the epic battle sequences. Likewise, my recognition of what happened at Gettysburg did not diminish my appreciation of Ronald Maxwell's historically accurate retelling. What hurts Troy is that there's no imagination or energy to the battles. All we see is the clash between two largely faceless armies hacking at each other. The conflict, like many of the prominent characters, lacks a personality. Peterson's handling of the one-on-one fights, Paris vs. Menelaus, Hector vs. Ajax, Hector vs. Achilles, is more successful. Troy was an expensive movie to make, and a lot of the money is on the screen. The special effects are well integrated into the live-action shots. The scene of 1,000 ships sailing to Troy is awe-inspiring, so we don't experience the kind of visual disconnect that often accompanies identifying the presence of computer-generated images. James Horner's bombastic score is a disappointing accompaniment, however easily his worst work in more than 2 decades. And cinematographer Roger Pratt's lensing of the battle sequences would be more impressive if he wasn't inadvertently competing with the recent memories of similarly vast encounters in The Two Towers and The Return of the King. Despite its shortcomings, there are things to appreciate about Troy, not the least of which is that it's aimed at adults, not children, a rarity amidst summer fare. And since I'm inordinately fond of historically based epics, even though little is known about the real Troy, I was entertained more often than not. But it seems to me that if a viewer is going to invest nearly 3 hours, he or she deserves more than what Troy delivers. The best epics work because they provide both visual spectacle and emotional resonance, and the second part of that equation is where Troy falls short. Tertiary love stories, such as the one between Achilles and a slave girl, and noble speeches aren't enough. Peterson understands the importance of believable characters, as he proved in his landmark Das Boot. But accepting Hector and Priam, he fails to bring these mythological figures to life on the screen. And that, more than anything else, proves to be this film's undoing. I feel like I've been saying this a lot this year, but disclaimer, this is legitimately one of my favorite movies of all time, if not my straight-up favorite. It's likely due to the combination of historical fantasy, mythology, and military history the film presents. It's got quotable moments, it's got action, and it's got a somewhat different spin on the Trojan War than permeates popular culture, I think. So what was the Trojan War? Most people might throw out Helen and Paris as the 2 key figures and say it was a war for one woman. Others might go more specific and tell you Paris, a prince of the city-state Troy, fell in love with the wife of Menelaus, king of a Greek city-state, and the two made off one night. In a rage, Menelaus went to his brother Agamemnon, who decided to help his brother seek revenge and get his wife back. By the way, Agamemnon had conquered pretty much all of Greece at this point and had a massive army at his disposal. Still others will dive even deeper and bring up a contest between the goddesses Aphrodite, Hera, and Athena. They basically had a beauty contest and picked one lucky or unlucky mortal to be their judge, e.g., Paris. In addition to strutting their stuff, they each promised Paris different things if he picked them. Aphrodite promised him the most beautiful woman in the world as his wife. In short, the man chose Aphrodite. So somebody ends up getting screwed over by the gods. That happens all the time in Greek mythology. Turns out the other gods get a vested interest in the war as well. Hera and Athena, because Paris didn't pick them, side with the Greeks. Aphrodite defends Troy. Apollo, the patron god of Troy, sides with Troy. Ares, being Ares, just fights wherever. By the end, pretty much all the major gods are involved, and it's such a mess that Zeus has to call an Olympian ceasefire and the gods just sit there and watch the war for 10 years. The final lasting image of the Trojan War on pop culture is that of the Trojan horse. We'll get to that later, as the movie does a decent job of presenting the Trojan horse scenes. Let's begin with the film, at the beginning. Novel concept, I know. We begin not with Paris stealing Helen or a contest of goddesses, but with Agamemnon settling his affairs with the last free king of Greece. The battle is decided in the classic, your best against my best format. This was a surprisingly common format for settling battles in different cultures across the world and across history. Agamemnon's best is none other than the protagonist of this movie, Achilles, the greatest warrior in the world. In mythology, Achilles was an all but invincible warrior who famously had one weak point, His heel, we're all familiar with the Achilles tendon, right? This was because when he was a baby, his mother Thetis, a demigoddess in simplistic terms, tried to make him immortal by dipping him in the river Styx. It would have worked, save that she was holding him by his heel, thus leaving that one spot vulnerable. Here, we have none of that. Achilles openly rejects the notion that he can't be killed within 2 minutes of us meeting him. In this telling of the Trojan War, Achilles is a simple man who only wants to be remembered as the greatest warrior of all time. He cares nothing for the politics of other kings and especially hates Agamemnon, who uses Achilles' talents to get what he wants. But if Achilles is so great, why does he put up with Agamemnon? Because as great as Achilles is, Agamemnon has the armies to crush him. Remember, this isn't the immortal Achilles we're dealing with here. In fact, this movie stays, for the most part, far away from the mythological and fantastic elements of the Trojan War. None of the gods appear in this movie, and the handling of other iconic moments from the war are handled beautifully. Save for one scene, the scene with Thetis. The short rundown is that while Agamemnon's off being Agamemnon, his brother Menelaus is hosting 2 princes of Troy, Hector and Paris, to celebrate a recent alliance between the 2 city-states. Paris makes off with Helen, and Hector, knowing it's too late to keep Menelaus from going to his brother, agrees to keep sailing on for Troy. Sure enough, Menelaus goes to Agamemnon, who agrees to launch a fleet of 1,000 ships at Troy to retrieve his brother's wife. Why would Agamemnon commit so much for his brother's honor, trade, and power? Agamemnon had been eyeing Troy from across the Aegean Sea for years. Conquering Troy would secure Agamemnon's empire and eliminate his biggest rival. Back to Achilles. The call to arms has been sent out, and he's debating whether to go to war or not. It's at this point we get a scene of him having a conversation with his mother, Thetis. It's the only time any sort of divine being appears in the movie. Her sole purpose is to prophesize that should he partake in this war, he would never be forgotten in the annals of history, but he would never return from it. She provides everyone with very obvious foreshadowing that would probably have been better suited to be delivered by Odysseus, who delivers the news to Achilles a scene earlier about the war between Greece and Troy. Surely Odysseus, cleverest of all the Greeks, could have told Achilles that, and kept the gods out of this movie. Because in my opinion, the lack of divine intervention is what makes the movie so intriguing. It's a snapshot of how possible events and the reporting of them could lead to myths and legends being spun. Cut to Troy, where we see a surprising amount of King Priam and Hector's wife throughout the movie. The film actively seeks to make the audience sympathize with the Trojans and demonizes Menelaus and Agamemnon. Every scene with Hector not in armor also features his wife and newborn son. The Trojans wear tie-dye robes and colorful dresses compared to the Greeks, who we almost see exclusively in armor. Cultured, advanced city vs. warmongering barbarians. So the Greeks sail for Troy, establish their foothold, and the war begins. While the major clashes between the army are quite a spectacle, the primary focus of the movie remains on the battles between heroes. Paris vs. Menelaus, Hector vs. Ajax, Hector vs. Patroclus, Hector vs. Achilles, etc. Before the true spectacle can begin, Achilles captures the young daughter of Priam, Briseis, in the Temple of Apollo, and starts a strange, rapidly evolving relationship from captor to rescuer to lover. Achilles also beheads the statue of Apollo at the temple, a symbolic message that this movie will not be delving deep into the fantasy elements of this war. Let's begin our series of duels. First up is Menelaus vs. Paris. The former is a seasoned warrior and the latter is a young lover. It goes exactly as you would expect, save that Hector intervenes and kills Menelaus before he can kill Paris. So the Trojans are treacherous scum, right? Except that before the fight, the movie goes out of its way to show an aside between Agamemnon and Menelaus, where the former says he wouldn't honor the terms of the fight even if Menelaus was victorious. He came for Troy. For every low blow the Trojans deliver, the Greeks always come out looking worse, rather through intentions or actions. But Achilles is there, so the Greeks are fine, right? Except that Agamemnon enraged Achilles by taking Briseis as his own spoil in the earlier battle, and now Achilles is sitting out the battles. Hector, meanwhile, is able to lead the Trojans to victory over Agamemnon, defeating the mighty warrior Ajax in the process. The Greeks retreat, and the Trojans celebrate. However, it turns out the Trojans are plagued by more than just the Greeks. They're plagued by their own terrible decision-making. One would think that, as lead commander, Hector's voice would carry the most weight in a war council. Turns out Priam is a very pious man and heeds the advice of a head priest who claims to have red signs hinting at a great victory tomorrow. Hector, wise to the fact Achilles sat out the first battle, doesn't want to risk uniting the Greeks by attacking their camp. Priam sides with the priest, and Hector begrudgingly sets out to prepare his men. Meanwhile, Achilles is on the verge of going home. He saves Briseis from Agamemnon's men and takes her back to the tent with him, that bizarre, rapid evolution of their relationship I mentioned earlier. Really, their entire affair makes little sense if you think about it. It's a strange cross between Stockholm Syndrome and the Florence Nightingale effect, leaning towards the former no matter how hard the movie tries to spin it as the latter. He's contemplating returning home and leaving the Greeks to whatever fate they find on the sands of Troy. The Trojans attack, and once again Achilles and his Myrmidon are sitting out. Or are they? Achilles leads the charge up the beach to meet Hector, and the two duel, and Hector wins. Turns out it wasn't Achilles, but his young cousin Patroclus the whole time. Suddenly, Achilles is filled with the desire for revenge and goes out to challenge Hector in one of the most iconic moments of the entire war. While the two don't circle the city a full 7 times in their fight, it goes through numerous stages. I've often looked for a symbolic 7 stages in this scene and can't say I've ever found it. As expected, Achilles is triumphant and takes Hector's body back to the Greek camp as a further act of petty revenge. But he's accomplished his goal and can at least sail home in the morning right. Enter Priam, who sneaks into the Greek camp to beg for his son's body back. Achilles is moved by the king's words and agrees, returning Briseis to her father as well. They also enter into a 2-week ceasefire which Agamemnon is persuaded to honor, not out of compassion or tradition, but by Odysseus. While not a major character in the movie, in the lore Odysseus is pressured by Agamemnon to fight in this war. He never really wanted to leave his wife and child back home in Ithaca, and he spends the entire war wanting nothing more than to get back home. He launches a gambit that we know today as the Trojan horse to end what was in history/mythology a 10-year war. In the film, the war is much shorter and Odysseus is just a Greek who wants to go home and save as many Greeks as he can. He believes that even without Hector, the Greeks won't win a straight-up battle with the Trojans. They need treachery. So he devises a plan to build a giant wooden horse as an offering for Poseidon and have the Greeks pretend to sail away. A few men would hide inside, and when the horse is taken inside the city to the temple of Poseidon, at night, the Greeks would slip out and open the gates for the rest of the army to sack the city. Achilles catches wind of this plan, because how can you not notice a giant wooden horse getting built? And decides he needs to stay and ensure that Briseis survives the sacking of Troy. Why? Reverse Stockholm Syndrome. Achilles' motivations are really shallow throughout this entire movie. Fight for glory, don't fight to spite Agamemnon, fight for revenge, fight for a one-night stand. To be fair, Achilles isn't that intricate a character in the source material, but his motivations in the final act could have been less cliché. Remember back when I said the Trojans made bad decisions? Well, when they stumble upon the ruins of the Greek camp and find the offering, Paris urges his father to burn it. Again, the head priest steps in and says it's an offering to Poseidon and should be taken to the temple in the city. Pious Priam again sides with the priest. Besides, Paris started the whole chain of events that led to the death of his eldest son, so hold on a second. Why a horse for Poseidon? Isn't he the god of the sea? Short answer, he's also the lord of horses. Back in the day, Poseidon fell in love with the goddess of nature, Demeter, and wanted to win her over. Depending on the version you hear, he pursued her in the form of a horse, or he made the horse himself to please her. Basically, there are a lot of variations to the Greek myths depending on which vase or wall you're looking at and which town you found it in. One thing's for certain, though, Poseidon was lord of the sea and big into horses. Night falls and the Greeks open the gates, and the sacking of Troy begins. Achilles heads the opposite direction to save Briseis, who is in turn looking for Paris, who is likewise looking for her. It's a chaotic mess in a burning city. Agamemnon kills Priam by stabbing him in the back in a temple of the gods while the Greeks loot the place and topple the idols. He then comes across Briseis praying and decides to kill her himself. That's when Achilles shows up and kills Agamemnon. Enter Paris, who sees Achilles with his sister and, assuming the worst, begins to shoot Achilles with his bow. The first bolt flies through Achilles' ankle. He turns to fight Paris, who unloads arrow after arrow into Achilles' chest. Achilles, being the legendary hero that he is destined to be, pulls the arrows out, but succumbs to his wounds. Briseis, after a heartfelt goodbye, flees with Paris and Helen, and Aeneas carrying his grandfather on his back. Achilles is left to be found dead by the other Greeks, who only see the warrior with a single arrow through his heel, and a bunch of other broken arrows scattered around him. It's an absolutely brilliant shot. And there you have it, Troy. While it, for the most part, actively goes out of its way to distance itself from the supernatural elements that populate the Iliad, it leaves spaces that could easily be filled to account for the myths and legends that arose out of the Trojan War. Rather than seeing how actual events led to the telling of legends, this is an interesting look back and attempt at reverse engineering some possible explanations for the widely known legend. Does it hold to its source material? No. The final act is a wild variation from the Iliad, though it does include an Easter egg for those familiar with the Aeneid. Is it that smart of a movie? Not really. At its heart, it's a fun action movie with great fight scenes, but at its soul, I think it offers just a little bit more than it's given credit for. Plus, how can you say no to that cast? As generations continue to revolutionize, various new prospects lie ahead for the many inhabitants of Earth, no matter what corner they live in. At a time when technology is changing so rapidly, the histories, traditions, and cultures of the past are sometimes forgotten, if not lost altogether. To counter this, Hollywood directors and producers alike create fantastical films that bring to life the many stories and legends that are carried down through generations, but have a chance of being lost forever. One of the stories that was written down rather than told was Homer's epic poem, the Iliad, which was basically the legend of the Trojan War. The story, which is thought to be based on history, was turned into a film in 2004 by director Wolfgang Petersen. The film's plot is based on the king of Mycenae, Agamemnon, who has forced the kingdoms of Greece into a loose alliance after decades of war. Menelaus, the king of Sparta and Agamemnon's brother, strives to make peace with Troy, who is the most powerful rival to the emerging nation, but when the Trojan prince, Paris, steals away Menelaus's wife, Helen. Agamemnon strives to get her back for his brother, and in the meantime, using the event as an opportunity to fight Troy and bring it down so that Sparta could be the strongest Greek nation. Although an ingenious plot based on the Greek epic poem, many things can be questioned, as it is unknown if the epic poem was even based on history itself. A film that is historically inaccurate gives no benefit to its viewers, as the story can be so twisted and changed that it is no longer a tale of history, tradition, or culture. When examined meticulously, it is clearly evident, however, that the film Troy is historically accurate as it is based on true facts from the ancient Greek life. The military, portrayed through fighting formations, weapons, and naval warfare. The culture of the Greeks, portrayed through burial customs, belief in gods and architecture as well as class structure, portrayed through the roles of women, the respect to the king and the respect to the Myrmidons, Achilles' fighting group, are all pieces of evidence that lead to the verdict that the film Troy is historically accurate. The military and its different parts that it is made up of are essential to any nation, particularly one which is emerging to be the most powerful. The military not only protects the nation from invaders, but also helps in the conquering of new territories to expand the nation so that it can grow. Expansion and conquering enemies all bring up a nation's status, which is why the Greeks fought with each other to gain power and respect from others. Part of the military's practices which were essential to its existence were fighting formations. The fighting formations of the Greeks were tightly formed and organized so that the enemy could not penetrate. The battle line, a carefully built wall, the warriors standing with shield touching shield in a solid line. This is likely to have been the position before a battle, with armies drawn up in opposing lines and meeting in this simple formation. The battle probably broke up into a melee, only after one side had given way, followed by individual duels and single combat. It is evident that the fighting formations were strongly structured so that the army appeared not only more powerful and mighty, but more organized and therefore more likely to intimidate the enemy. Once the formations were broken, the warriors fought individually, trying to kill as many of the opponents as possible. This sort of fighting in formation was also portrayed in the film Troy, where Hector's army gathered outside of the Trojan walls standing side by side, with their large rectangular shields touching each other for protection. Once battle was initiated, however, the men separated and fought individually. This event in the movie was clearly an accurate portrayal of fighting formations in Greece during 1250 BCE, and thus starts to prove that the film Troy is historically accurate. Another division of the military, one of the most important in fact, is the weapons. Without weapons, battle would be very hard to win because warriors would need to be clever and exceptionally strong so that they could overtake their enemy with their bare hands. Luckily, the Greeks had very developed weapons, which proved to be useful against opponents. Weapons like spears and swords were used extensively in the Greek military, although spears were the first weapon of choice. Swords always seem to have taken second place after spears. This is also portrayed in the movie Troy, as when Hector faces Achilles in one-on-one combat, they use their spears first and then their swords. Spears in the film were constructed in such a manner that they looked like they were supposed to. Throwing spears, javelins were usual, but some were obviously thrusting spears, such as Hector's, which was supposed to be 11 cubits long. Spear shafts were made of ash wood. Although it is impossible to tell the exact length of the thrusting spears used in the film, they were pretty long, visually looking to be about 5 meters, which is approximately the length of 11 cubits. The rod of the spears were all made out of wood, although again, it is impossible to tell whether or not it was particularly out of ash wood. However, it was definitely made out of wood. Therefore, it is obvious that the film Troy sticks to history because of the materials and props they used on set to film the production, the same materials and objects which were used over 3,000 years ago. The last division in the military, which was of high importance to the Greeks, was naval or the sea category. Without naval ships, armies could not have gotten around and traveled to other areas to expand their territories or challenge their enemy as a consequence for a wrongdoing. The Greeks used many different types of warships, although the ones that were most common during the Trojan War and which were described in Homer's epic poem, Iliad, were pentacounters. 2 types of ships are mentioned by Homer: light, fast ships powered by 20 oars, and heavier warships powered by 50 oars. These 50-oared galleys had one level only. They appear to have been built mainly from pine wood, with oars of polished spruce, while the bow terminated in a nearly vertical prow with a metal-sheathed ram at the waterline. Pentacounters had a mast with a square sail that was taken down before going into battle. In the movie Troy, the ships used also had one level of oarsmen and about 50 men rowing with oars. The front of the ship had an almost vertical prow that was slightly curved to the shape of the ship that helped stop the ship when it reached the shores. The ships used in the film also had square-shaped white masts that were lowered when the ship reached the shore. Evidently, the portrayal of the military in the film whether naval or on land, was historically accurate because the things depicted were truthful to history and actual Greek objects and occurrences. The culture of any nation, whether emerging or already established, plays an important role in the everyday lives of citizens. Culture is a development in inhabited area that shows how prosperous the place is, because the main focus is no longer on just mere survival, as there are things to do. Religion, architecture, art, beauty, sports are just some of the aspects of culture that show how rich a nation is, because the people can have an average income, but if they are culturally satisfied, they will be happier than those who have no culture. Culture played an important role in the lives of the Greeks, and they had advanced burial customs, religion, and architecture, which made their nation a better place to live. Burial customs are one aspect of culture that was sophisticated, and there was always a belief in the afterlife in the Greek culture, no matter what religion. Inhumation was most common in Mycenaean times, but by sea. 1200 BC cremation became the main method of burial and was universal, evidently. By the time of the Trojan War, cremation was used most often, and this is depicted in the film as well because everyone who dies in the film, whether it was Patroclus, Hector, or any other warrior, they were all collected and burned. In cremation, bodies were burned on a pyre. Soldiers killed in warfare were only rarely buried on the battlefield. Very often they were cremated on the battle site, and their ashes taken home. It is obvious that soldiers were generally not buried at the site of the battle in which they fought, rather just cremated, and the ashes were gathered and taken home. This was the case in the film Troy, when many soldiers died. Chariots collected the bodies and carried them just outside of the battlefield, where there was a huge fire where other soldiers would cremate the bodies. Again, it is clearly portrayed that the film Troy was historically accurate, because it followed the burial customs that the ancient Greeks practiced themselves. Religion was another important aspect of the ancient Greeks' life, and they all worshipped some gods. To some Greeks, certain gods were unimportant, but others were considered almighty to them. To the Trojans, the god Apollo was of high importance. A god worshipped throughout the Greek world and the embodiment of moral excellence, he was the god of prophecy, healing, archery. He was also a god of light, sometimes being identified with the sun and with the god Helios. In the film Troy, the main worship was to Apollo, and this is portrayed through frequent reference to Apollo, when King Priam or his men were prophesying. Everything centered on Apollo, who Priam prayed to nightly and to whom he assumed the wooden Trojan horse by the Greeks was built. The precious temple of Troy's patron god Apollo, complete with 5-foot-high solid gold statue of Apollo, is located outside the city, down the beach. This was the case in the film because the Trojans created a temple just outside the city, and in front of it was a massive gold statue of Apollo. Clearly, the historical accuracy of the film Troy is yet again proved as it supports the facts from ancient Greek religion. Another form of culture is the art through mainly architecture that is apparent in any nation that is on the rise to being one of the best. Architecture shows how culturally rich a society is because, again, the main focus is no longer survival, but other things as well, which show how prosperous a nation may be. Troy had a massive wall that protected the city on the inside, and that was their main form of architecture. The walls of fortifications are an average of 16.5 ft thick and are built of massive stones weighing up to 10 tons. Evidently, the fortifications at Troy were extremely large, which is why no one could penetrate them until the Greeks created the Trojan horse. This is also portrayed in the movie Troy when the Greeks attack, but cannot penetrate the walls until they sneak in through the horse. The walls used in the film are visibly made out of stone and very large, although it is impossible to tell the exact measurements of the fortification. Overall, the portrayal of culture in the film Troy is historically accurate because the burial customs, religion, and architecture portrayed in the film is the same as that of the ancient Greek world. The class structure of the ancient Greek world was much different than ours today. although some things are similar to today's world. Historical accuracy in the class structure system is key to a successful depiction of the ancient Greek world in film. The respect given to women, to the king, and to Achilles' elite warrior group, the Myrmidons, all are historically accurate because it is very similar to the respect given in the ancient Greek world. The respect given to women in the ancient Greek time period was small, but there were enjoyable parts to it. Female characters of the upper class led a relatively independent life. Although women were technically of citizen status, they had no rights of citizenship. Women had no political rights and could take no part whatsoever in government. Evidently, women had small respect, but those of the upper class were fairly independent, being allowed to do more than the poorer women, although none of them could participate in politics. This is also portrayed in the film Troy. The women of the palace who were princesses, or so, took no part in the politics of the palace where all the men assembled, led by the king and his princes to plan out things for Troy. Although women had no role in politics and government, they played an important role in religion. Within religion, women did play an important role, such as a dominant role at funerals, weddings. There were many priestesses. This is also portrayed within the film Troy, as when Briseis, the cousin of Hector and Paris, decided to become Apollo's servant, she was commended, and it was said that Apollo is going to have a wonderful servant. Although women had this advantage, they were considered weak, and a reference to this is made in the movie when it is said that peace is for women and weak by Agamemnon. Evidently, using that metaphor, women were considered fragile, and therefore peace went straight along with women, since peace did not show off nations' might or power. Evidently, the film Troy is historically accurate because it correctly portrays the respect given to women in the ancient Greek class system. In the ancient Greek world, there was always a lot of respect given to the king of the nation, whether he deserved it or not. Kings were very respected officials and demanded that they were given honor even if they were wrong on something. In the film Troy, the respect given to the king, particularly Agamemnon, was very high, although he did not do anything. Odysseus comments on this to Achilles, who gets angry over the fact that warriors are giving the king things that they stole, even though he did nothing at all to deserve the gifts. Odysseus says war is old men talking and young men dying. Evidently, it is portrayed that the king had much respect whether he deserved it or not, and in this case, it is evident that Agamemnon did not deserve the respect that he was being given. Nonetheless, the king continued to be showered with gifts, as warriors were honored to be in his presence and to be given a promise by him. Achilles' elite group of warriors, the Myrmidons, were also a group that was given a lot of respect and was allowed to be different because they were necessary to the winnings of many battles. Although the king, particularly Agamemnon, disliked Achilles and his group very much because of their individuality, he used them because of their skill. For example, all Greek warships that sailed had white sails, but the ship that was used by the Myrmidons had a black sail and was a showcase of their individuality. The Myrmidons, led by Achilles, were so skilled that when they went out on their own onto the beaches of Troy, instead of waiting for the other Greek ships behind them, Agamemnon complained, but soon acknowledged that it was the group's choice to do what they want. Evidently, Achilles' group, the Myrmidons, had a lot of respect from others, even Agamemnon, who let them do what they wanted to, because of the Greek need for them and their skill. Overall class structure and the respect that was given in the film Troy was historically accurate because it truthfully portrayed women, the king and the Myrmidons. From the beginning of the film Troy, directed by Wolfgang Petersen, right to the end, the film proves that it is historically accurate and thus keeps the legend of the Trojan War, written down by Homer through his epic poem, the Iliad, alive. When analyzing the military portrayed in the film through the fighting formations, weapons, and naval warfare, it is evident that the producers stuck to history and made an accurate portrayal of the Greek military. Culture as well is an aspect that proves to be truthful to the ancient Greek world through the portrayal of burial customs, religion, and architecture. Finally, class structure and respect is yet another part of the film that remains historically faithful through the portrayal of the respect given to women. The king and Achilles' elite group of warriors, the Myrmidons. Overall, it is apparent how new periods of time can still maintain history and portray legends, traditions, and cultures of the past accurately, so that the audience can benefit from the film and the story of the ancient world will never be lost.